Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. God bless you, your heart, and all your body parts. And the theme for this week that God gave to me is protection. 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 God's coverings, God's shieldings, God's protection from, God's protection in, God's protection out of. Whatever it may be, wherever you are, God's protection. And the first message that God gave to me comes from Second Chronicles, chapter 15, verses 1 through 5. No God, no peace. No God, no peace. Um, so we come to a time where the children of Israel are doing a lot of things that are not of God. They continue to turn away from God. They go to God, they turn away from God. They go to God, they turn away from God. And every time they turn away from God, situations get bad, situations get horrible, and they turn back to God. So we come to a realization in these few scriptures that I'm gonna talk about today, that there's literally, if we don't have God, we don't have peace. Like if we choose not to follow God, if we choose not to listen to God, if we choose not to walk a godly path in life, it won't be peaceful. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you cut it, it's not gonna be a life of peace. You may have some fun, there may be some adventures from time to time, but as soon as that next drunk is gone, as soon as that next high is gone, it's right back to the starting point. As soon as that woman, that man is gone, it's right back to the starting point. But God is showing us a place that is a whole lot better than worldly satisfaction. It's a whole lot better than the temporal stuff of this world. We got God, we got peace. Not only do we have peace, but we have protection. So the first thing that I see is that they had no leader. The leader is very important. And you see that in verse 4. There were times where there was no leader, and the people of Israel were without the one true God. And so we began to wonder. It leads us to the fact that leadership is very important when it comes to following God. God has given us deacons, preachers, pastors, evangelists, Sunday school teachers, prayer warriors. God has given us a lot of people inside of the church to help lead us in the correct path. Unfortunately, like the children of Israel in Second Chronicles, a lot of times we get full of ourselves and we don't want a leader. We don't want somebody that God has appointed to lead us. We want to lead ourselves, or we want to pick the person. And unfortunately, every time we decide to pick somebody to lead us, if we're not being directed by God from that leadership, it's going to be wrong. It's going to be wrong, and it's going to lead us to a path of destruction. Like I said earlier, it may be cool at first. It may lead to some yay excitement initially, but eventually everything is going to fail because that leader is not directed and ordained by God to lead. So we must humble ourselves and understand that God has the power to put leaders in front of us, to put leaders around us, and we must be smart enough, humble enough to be able to submit to that leadership. The second thing is the law. So there was no law and there was no teacher, which led them to much turmoil. That made them feel alone. So, living under the New Testament, we understand that God came to complete the law, but the law is still there for us to be able to understand it and to lead us to correction. The law is not the thing that saves us, but the law does guide us. There are some very powerful, the whole thing, is very powerful, and it helps us to live in peace and harmony with one another. It helps us to live a holy and pure life if we take it into consideration and apply it to our lives. So the law is not completely gone. The law is not gone away. The law is not something that was to be disposed of. The law, just like it, well, differently than it was for the children of Israel, but at the same time, we should still adhere to the principles of the law. We're you know what I'm saying? There are principles of the law that help us. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, don't commit adultery, don't covet, don't have another God before you, honor your mother and your father. The law are there, they make sense. Just to keep it 100, they make sense. Like, why wouldn't I? Like, why do I want to be a type of person that's a killer or a thief? Why do I want to be disrespectful to my parents? Why do I want to look at somebody else's stuff and I want that? Why can't I be grateful for my own things? So the law isn't this scary thing that we can't look at. The law is really placed for us to have direction and guidance. It keeps us steady. And not only and it's not just the law by itself. We need the law and the leader. We need those things go together, because sometimes we have questions. And if we have a question, it's easy sometimes to be able to take it to that spiritual leader and ask, like, hey, yo, what does this mean? Am I supposed to still do this? For instance, pork. Is it okay for me to still eat pork? Hey, that's another subject. That's another time. We'll get on that later. But I'm just saying, if you have a spiritual leader and you can take that law to the leader, and then they can help prayerfully, if that is a God sent leader, that leader will help. So we need a leader, we need the law, and we need the light. So these times for the children of Israel, they were dark times. But even though the times were dark, God was always available and ready to help. So when we get away from leadership and law, the times get dark. We find ourselves in situations that are depressing and sad and unfortunate. And, oh, I'm sorry for this. Oh, this happened and that happened. And it's because of the type of life that we live. If we choose to live a life that is without God, again, we have no peace. There's a lot of things that happen to us that will be out of our control, and God sees it. God is still there for us, but it has been up to us to choose God or to choose the world. Honestly, that's just the option. It's just as simple as that. If you don't choose God, then you're choosing the world. If you don't choose to find a spiritual leader and figure out what the law says to me and apply it to my life, then the light will no longer be in your life. You will literally be living a life of darkness. And that is unfortunate. It's a sad life. It's an unfortunate life. It's not a life that leads to anything that is good. I mean, too many times we see people, especially like in Hollywood or whatever, we see people that wind up committing suicide, or you see rich people going and killing up their whole family. It's because it's not about the money and it's not about the fame. There's something on the inside that we desire as human beings. And the only thing that can fill that is the love of God. And the only way we can get to God is through Jesus Christ. So if we don't have that within us, we're going to live sad and unfortunate lives. And our eternal destination won't be in God, won't be in heaven with God. It'll be a place filled with suffering. So, I mean, if you're living on this earth, you already suffered enough. You already suffered enough. God is waiting and ready to accept you in your arms. All it takes for us is to look up, which leads me to the last point. So not only do we have the lead, not only do we need a leader, and not only do we need a law, and we understand that it's the light, but we have to look up. So as soon as the people of Israel turned and looked for God, he came to their aid immediately. Then we see in verse 4, there came encouragement that God is an ever-present help. We see that in verse 4. Immediately, man, God is there. God is waiting for you. Anybody that's ever had a child or maybe a niece and a nephew, niece or nephew that was starting to walk. When they first started to walk, as a parent, you right there waiting just in case they fall or just in case they stumble, you're right there to catch them so they don't fall, so they don't feel the weight of hitting the ground like that. You put forth the effort to be right there. And that's the same way God is with us. He's saying he's his hands are open. They're open and they're waiting. Hey, I'm here. I'm here. And if we decide to let go, we can fall into the rest and the comfort of God's hands. And it'll be so amazing. It'll be so wonderful. And we can be like these children of Israel, who were able to find peace once they decided to turn. What does the Bible tell us? The Bible tells us that the Lord will stay with you as long as you stay with him. That's in the scripture. That's in the word. That's in Second Chronicles chapter 1, or I'm sorry, chapter 15, verse 2. It's right there. If we decide that God is really for us, if we decide that we want peace, if we decide that we really want God's protection, then we have to understand we need a true leader. We have to submit to the things of the law. We have to walk in the light of God. And we must always continue to look to God for our help, to look to God for our help. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, it's not always easy, but it's simple. God is there. God is willing to help, ready to help. And it's up to us. It's up to us to go get that help. God bless you. I love you. God loves you. Have a great day.